Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. A driver careens into a woman walking with her 8-month-old daughter, and then police body cam captures the daring rescue as officers work to free the little girl from underneath that car. Those officers will join us live. But first, remember Kim Potter, the former Minneapolis police officer who said she confused her handgun for her taser when she shot and killed 20-year-old Dante Wright? She was convicted in December of first and second-degree manslaughter. Now prosecutors want her sentenced well above what the Minnesota sentencing guidelines call for, which is a maximum of 15 years. And to be clear, in a case like hers, someone with no criminal history, the Minnesota guidelines suggest a sentencing range of just more than 6 to about 8.5 years. But this is not just another case. Despite the fact that everyone agrees it was a mistake, this is one where the prosecutors, since the beginning, have been under enormous political pressure to try to go beyond the guidelines. Now, here again, a reminder of that shooting and her reaction afterwards. Look, I felt real sympathy for Kim Potter, but as a legal matter, also believed that her actions fit the definition of first-degree manslaughter. I would have been stunned if she'd been acquitted. I thought a hung jury could happen, but it was either that or a conviction. But that does not mean that what she did is worse than other people convicted of first-degree manslaughter in Minnesota. It is clear that she did not do this on purpose. But you wouldn't know that from the brief filed yesterday by prosecutors who basically made two main arguments. First, they say her conduct caused a greater than normal danger to the safety of others. They said in part about Wright ultimately crashing his car after being shot, quote, several witnesses explained that 63 Avenue is a busy street, this heightened likelihood that disabling the driver of a vehicle would injure others, and that is exactly what happened. After defendant shot Mr. Wright's vehicle traveled eastbound down the street and struck the Lundgren's vehicle. They also argued that Potter also put the officers with her and the passenger in Wright's vehicle in particular danger, saying defendant also created a great risk of harm to Officer Lucky and her supervisor, then Sergeant Johnson. Defendant created a risk that the bullet she fired would either go through her intended target or that defendant's shot would miss Mr. Wright altogether and strike Officer Lucky. But listen to those words. All of this, including the cases that they cite, treat it like it was an intentional shooting, not one that everyone agrees was accidental. Reckless, yes. Criminal, yes. Intentional, no. The second reason prosecutors cited was because they say she abused her position of authority as a law enforcement officer. Defendant's position of public trust and authority is reflected by the Brooklyn Center Police Department's policies and the testimony presented at trial. Police officers have an incredibly important role in society, though which she hold a special social contract with the public. Again, if the shooting was intentional, I understand using that against her. But it was reckless. It was negligent. Potter's defense responded that it was Dante Wright who decided to try to drive away, crashing into the other vehicle, and that her fellow officers said she acted accordingly. Quote, Officer Potter can't be held responsible for Mr. Wright's decisions. He was required by law to obey the officers' collective orders. They had the absolute right to arrest him. He alone did what he intended to do, driving into his own abyss that day. He caused the subsequent accident. Quote, the officers on the scene agree with Officer Potter's attempt to stop Wright. Officer Lucky testified that the use of a taser was entirely appropriate. Sergeant Johnson told the jury he would have been killed if Wright had driven away. They also went after the prosecution's claim that she should face a stiffer sentence because she was a police officer, something they called political. Officer Potter's sentencing grid is an artificial construct defined by the Attorney General, whose constituency asks for higher time in this case. Whose voice is the Attorney General hearing? Is it the defunding movement that neglects to read the data? where a decrease in police investigation and presence has led to an increase in crime? Look, putting aside the more political arguments, Potter's attorneys are right. A sentence of 15 years or higher just seems like an effort to cave to the mob. Calling for a stiffer sentence like that? Look at some other manslaughter 1 convictions in Minnesota. Derek Blanton was convicted for fatally shooting his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend in 2018. A jury found Blanton guilty of first-degree manslaughter, believing he was acting in the heat of passion. But he still intentionally shot him. 8.5 years. Michael Cordell Garland from St. Paul, Minnesota, fatally shot his childhood friend after a dispute over a firearm. Sentenced to 8 years and 7 months. They're asking for over 15 years here. Potter will be sentenced on February 18th. We reached out to the Minnesota Attorney General, Keith Ellison. He declined to appear, but we're thrilled to have Kelly Mitchell, the executive director of the Robina Institute at the University of Minnesota School of Law, who also previously served as the executive director of the Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines Commission. So she really knows how these guidelines work. And once again, we're thrilled to have back criminal defense attorney April Prayar. Good to see you both. April, let me start with you. What do you think I'm getting wrong here?
I'm not sure you're getting anything wrong, especially when you point to the other defendants who have gotten about 8 years, just a little bit above what people were expecting Miss Potter to get. The state's major argument is the first one, that the greater than normal risk or danger or safety to others was created by her actions. So by pulling the weapon, because the mistake, as we know, is not a defense to this crime or really to any crime, and that in doing so, that she shot into a moving car, that she could have injured or killed the driver, the passenger, the other officers, and that car not only as a result of her actions could have caused an accident, but in fact did cause an accident, and Mr. Lundgren's health has declined as a direct result of this. So I'm saying their best argument is their first argument. I think the second one, the second prong, is the more difficult one, simply by saying that she was in uniform is therefore an aggravating factor. I'm not sure that works.
Right. Let me ask Kelly Mitchell, though. You heard April say that mistake isn't a defense, but it is relevant in sentencing. It's not a defense in this case. She was clearly convicted. They determined she was reckless, she was negligent. But it does seem to me very relevant in the context of sentencing. And it feels to me like the prosecution is setting the standard and comparing it to other cases where people made the decision to be reckless. They chose to do something that was, particularly dangerous in pulling out their weapon and firing. Kelly, am I misreading this?
So, in Minnesota, we do base the typical sentences on the actual offense of conviction, right? So we have to start with, how is this offense defined in the first place? And then the judge does have the ability to take into account the particular circumstances of the individual when actually setting the sentence. So that might be, that might cause the judge to go to the lower end of the range within that cell, maybe even go to the higher end of the range, sort of depending on what's relevant at that time. So that's where the judge, might be thinking about mistake versus intentionality in the way that this crime was committed.
But the range you're talking about is the 6 to 8 and 7 months or whatever it is range, which I think makes perfect sense. What prosecutors are asking for here is more than 15 years, which just seems completely off the grid, so to speak, when it comes to Minnesota law. Am I wrong, Kelly?
So it's not entirely wrong. The way that it works in Minnesota is that whatever the presumptive sentence is, if there are aggravating factors that support an aggravated sentence, a sentence is longer than called for in the guidelines, the judge has the ability to depart up to twice the presumptive sentence. So the judge could go up to 2 times above this 86 months, presumptive range. But the reality is that those cases are rare. And, in the past 20 years, for the 100 cases that have been for people who have been convicted of first-degree manslaughter, only 6 people have been given that 15-year sentence.
But this isn't like every other case. I think, April, there's enormous political pressure not just on the prosecutors, which is the reason I think that they asked for this this additional sentence, but I think there's going to be enormous pressure on the judge to potentially issue a sentence harsher than would ordinarily be the case.
I'm not sure that that's going to be the case. So I think that there are other factors at play. One, Ms. Potter is a woman. One, two, she is a mother. Three, she was a police officer at the time. I think all of those loom large in the judge's mind as well. And the judge is a woman. And I think all of that, whether it gets spoken or unspoken, is going to be at play. I think the judge will have in her mind, okay, if I sentence her to this many years, how long will she be away from her children? So I think all those are factors that are probably weighing on her greater than the political pressure. As we know, judges are supposed to stay middle of the line and be unbiased and not be swayed by political pressure. But yes, the prosecutor's office definitely has that pressure to say, we did everything we could to get this family the justice that they deserve. And now whether it plays out in the way that they hope or not, we have yet to see.
Well, April, and what I like about you is that you do focus on the unspoken, which is the realities, right? It's not just sort of what ordinarily happens. It's the human side of this. And I am very concerned about the fact that it seems these prosecutors want to treat her more harshly than in other cases where people intentionally shot somebody else. And that seems to me to be a complete and total travesty. But we shall see what happens, because none of us know for certain. I am hoping that the judge remains fair and objective in this case. Kelly Mitchell and April Prayar, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up, today is the Lunar New Year. Many kids are actually off from school. But now there's an effort to make it a federal holiday, which begs the question, where does it end? We can't accommodate every holiday, every cultural celebration. My next guest wants to make the Lunar New Year a national holiday. He's going to try to explain to me what I am missing. That's up next. Schools in major cities across the country are closed today once again, only this time it has nothing to do with COVID. Schools in New York, Philadelphia, San Francisco, suburban D.C., and more canceled class today in honor of the Lunar New Year. The holiday is considered very significant in many Asian cultures. So despite lacking a religious connection, school-age kids got another day off, which is certainly welcome news to kids and teachers, but leaves parents in a child care lurch once again. Late last year, Iowa City School District added days off to accommodate the Lunar New Year after previously adding the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of Ramadan, and Yom Kippur, the holy day on the Jewish calendar, to its list of school holidays. Last week, the school board for Virginia's Fairfax County Public Schools followed suit, but also included time off for the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah as well, and the Hindu festival Diwali and Orthodox Christian Good Friday. And now there are even bills in Congress looking to add Lunar New Year and Diwali to the existing list of 11 federal holidays. It got me thinking about when and where do we draw the line? Don't we have enough federal holidays built into the calendar as it is? Will schools start canceling class for the Festival of Rezvan, which is the holiest time of the year for followers of the Baha'i faith, which has about 175,000 followers around the country, or a day every April to recognize the Gathering of Nations, the largest Native American powwow in the country? I am not being remotely facetious. These are important days to particular groups. And schools should be required to allow students time off for religious celebrations, just like employers are. They shouldn't be giving every kid the day off for holidays that they don't celebrate. It's disruptive to learning and for parents. Wouldn't things be easier for everyone if students who need the day off were just able to take it off without penalty? And beyond just schools, there's no shortage of special interest groups and minority religions in this country, for example. If we start giving each one their own federal holiday, it never ends. Joining me now is New York State Assembly member Yuh-Line Niou. She represents neighborhoods in Lower Manhattan, including New York City's Chinatown, and she supports the bill that has been proposed to make the Lunar New Year a national holiday. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. What am I missing here?
Well, first off, happy Lunar New Year. 恭喜发财，新年快乐.
I should be saying that to you. Yes, thank you. Yep.
I just wanted to say that, I think that, right now, it's really actually, I heard your opening statement, and I think that actually kids today have longer school years than they did actually in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. The 80s and 90s is when I went to K through 12. And I think that in New York, actually, 3 weeks have been actually added to the school year over the decades. So kids are actually in school more today than they have ever been. And I think that's really important that we actually celebrate Lunar New Year, because it's one of the very, very significant holidays for our communities. And I think that it's a beautiful holiday for everyone to celebrate. And it's also really important to recognize that Asian Americans are also Americans, and this is an American holiday.
Look, I learned a lot about Lunar New Year over the last few years. I didn't know that much about it, and I've come to appreciate it. I think it's sort of like it's great. And it's sort of like a Thanksgiving, which I think is kind of terrific about it. But that still doesn't convince me that we need another federal holiday to celebrate the Lunar New Year, because then the question becomes like, when do we stop?
Well, we live in a diverse nation, and I think that it's really important for us to actually embrace all the different cultures that actually are a part of us, right? I mean, with right now, there will be 35 million Asian Americans in the U.S. by 2060, and the conversation is yet still about whether or not these holidays are real, I guess. And I think that if we are seen as real Americans, and if we are acknowledging that we belong here, then we need to make sure that we celebrate the one holiday that actually represents us, and that's our New Year. And I think that right now our country is having a huge recognition that anti-Asian hate is very real, and that there's a lot of hurt and there's a lot of violence that we've seen in New York, nationwide. And it's hurtful to see that there are people who don't feel like Asian Americans belong here, and celebrating a holiday like this is a way to be able to say that.
Okay, I was going to say that it felt like you brought it back. I was going to say it kind of feels like you're changing the subject because, again, as I said, I think it's a beautiful holiday. I think the idea of Asian American hate in this country is a real issue, and I'm glad you're focused on it, as we all should be focused on it, not just you, me, the rest of us. But it doesn't address my question about adding in it, because the same arguments you make can be made about another group to say, well, they need a federal holiday too. And it just feels like it's just never ending. You got a final word on that? I mean,
sure. I mean, we celebrate Eid, we celebrate Juneteenth, we celebrate, Martin Luther King Day. We celebrate all of these important days because we're recognizing something that's important to us as a country. And I'm thinking that, this is the reason why it's also an educational opportunity. Just like you just said, you learned a lot about Lunar New Year. And I think
you don't need a day off for it. Yeah. But you don't need a day off. All right. Anyway,
I loved celebrating with my friends. I'll put it that way.
You know what? I've got to wrap this up. I'm going to say again, Happy Lunar New Year to you.
Thank you.
Yulin New, terrific guest.
Tiger.
I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, lots of talking heads in the sports media world have egg on their faces tonight after shooting down the report that Tom Brady was retiring. And just when you thought it was over, new rumors now emerging. Coming up. Everyone on both sides of the media aisle appear to be treating Donald Trump as the inevitable Republican candidate for president in 2024. And while he may be the favorite right now, a lot of indicators that few on the far left or far right want to discuss are now pointing towards a major opening for another Republican candidate. Now, new fundraising numbers show Trump's various political action committees took in more than $51 million to close out 2021. That's a total of $122 million in his campaign coffers, which certainly makes him formidable, particularly in a GOP primary. But there's mounting evidence suggesting he's far from bulletproof. For starters, a series of new polls contain some ominous findings for Trump. Take a look at this recent survey of Republican voters. Only 30% of Republicans want Donald Trump to run unopposed in 2024, while a whopping 61% want to consider other options. A new NBC News poll found that most members of the GOP consider themselves Republicans first and Trump supporters second by a margin of 55 to 35. And those numbers were reversed as recently as November 2020, when a majority of the party put Trump first. And a recent AP survey found that 43% of Republicans don't even want Trump to run at all in 2024. On top of that, the power of Donald Trump's endorsement seems to be dwindling within the party. The former president's support of Former State Department spokesperson Morgan Ortagus in a Tennessee House race set off a firestorm with MAGA diehards like Congressman Madison Cawthorn and Candace Owens coming out against Trump to endorse rival candidate Robbie Starbuck. In Pennsylvania, Trump's handpicked candidate for the Senate, Sean Parnell, has quit the race already. And in North Carolina, Mark Walker directly defied the former president, who reportedly asked him to run for the House instead of the Senate. The former president was trying to clear the field for his preferred candidate, but Walker stood firm. Now, based on these setbacks, the former president is said to be considering making an extra pick in some races. He explained the move by reportedly saying, "I get 2 chances to win." Now, an example of overstating the former president's stranglehold on the GOP was on display in Texas on Saturday night. Take a look at the not-so-warm welcome Republican Governor Greg Abbott received at the former president's rally on Saturday night.
Please welcome the governor of the great state of Texas.
Now, based on that reception, you would think Abbott was reviled by Texas Republicans. He doesn't have a chance at re-election. It turns out that's not the case at all. A new survey from the Dallas Morning News finds that 80% of Texas Republicans approve of the job Greg Abbott's doing as governor. And the governor currently holds a double-digit lead over his Democratic challenger, Beto O'Rourke. If someone like Greg Abbott can be held in such low regard at a Trump rally in a red state like Texas and likely still cruise to re-election, it makes you realize that a MAGA rally is not the Republican Party. Also today, we learned former President George W. Bush has made maximum donations to Senator Lisa Murkowski and Congresswoman Liz Cheney, 2 of Trump's least favorite members of Congress. Bush has been real careful to stay out of the political fray in recent years, but those donations could be a sign he's gearing up to fight Trump. So why are so few talking about this? Well, one person who is joins us now. Nick Gillespie is the editor-at-large for the libertarian magazine Reason. He is host of the Reason Interview podcast. Nick, thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right.
Thanks for
so
having
I have
me.
to admit, it was your Twitter thread that got me first thinking about this. So why do you think Donald Trump is so vulnerable in a Republican primary?
Well, for the reasons that you kind of were laying out there, compared to a year ago and especially 2 years ago, he is less popular among Republicans and likely Republican voters. The reasons for that are clear. I think people understand a year out. Donald Trump didn't just lose the presidency in November of 2020. His, kind of hissy fit after that, leading up to January 6th and everything in between, cost the Republicans the Senate. This is a guy who has had 2 national elections as president, hasn't been able to crack 47%. That's not going to win. And I think the Republican voters, Republican leadership understand that. And they also are going to understand that more coming into the midterms, where unpopular presidents, according to Gallup, lose an average of 37 seats in Congress. Joe Biden is unpopular. The Republicans are going to win the House, probably take the Senate back. And they're going to do that without Donald Trump. They don't need Donald Trump to do that. And if they want to have a future, they've got to be looking at other candidates who can actually crack 50% in a national election.
And the counter argument here, as you know, is no one draws the kinds of crowds that Donald Trump can draw. He's the biggest moneymaker in the party, still is a dominant number 1 in the poll among Republicans. What do you say to that?
Well, I think it's all true. But Trump also was out drawing, during the 2020 election, he had a lot more signs out in yards and he filled stadiums in a way that Joe Biden, the rhetoric was Biden was afraid to come out of his basement. Biden couldn't draw flies. That doesn't matter as much as people think. It's also true that, there's a third of Republican voters, 35, 36%, that say they are more of Trump fan than a Republican. Those people might not go away, and they might cause a lot of consternation for Republican people running for the nomination, but they are also poisonous to political discourse, and they're attacking Trump. It was only a couple of weeks ago, Trump, when he was talking about having created the vaccines through Operation Warp Speed and having gotten the booster, he was getting booed at his own rallies. again, you know, and I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm a small L libertarian. I don't even belong to the LP. And one of the biggest problems I see going into 2024 is that it's going to be a Republican or a Democrat. And these are two failed parties. You know, we just cracked $30 trillion in national debt. Having said that, though, I do think that there are Republicans who are looking down the road. You know, they're not going to win with Trump. And they understand that. And they understand increasingly they don't need him in order to defeat Joe Biden or to, you know, get control of Congress.
Nick Gillespie, I don't know if you're right, but you made me think, which is great. And that's why we had you on the show.
Well,
thank you so much. I appreciate
thank you
it.
for that. You bet.
Coming up, remember the horrific shooting at a Tennessee Waffle House a few years ago? Well, the shooter's on trial now, and the brave man who took him down by grabbing the barrel of the gun testified. It was a powerful account from a guy who risked everything to stop the shooter. We're going to show you that up next.
I just ran through the door thinking it's either it's going to be me or him, or it's going to be, you know, death. We'll see what happens.
That was James Shaw Jr. testifying in a Tennessee courtroom this week about the moment he rushed towards shooter Travis Reinking as Reinking opened fire inside a Nashville Waffle House in April of 2018. Shaw had no weapon, nothing to shield him from the AR-15 that Reinking had just used to kill a total of 4 people and wound 2 others. Prosecutors played surveillance video in court. After shooting and killing his first 2 victims in the parking lot, Reinking blew out the windows of the Waffle House. Customers run and scatter, ducking for cover. Reinking then walks into the restaurant as he's approaching the bathrooms where several people are hiding. Then he's confronted by Shaw, who describes to prosecutors what happened in those terrifying, tense moments.
Was there ever a pause in the gunshots?
Yes, it was.
What did you do when you heard the pause?
I acted.
What do you mean by that?
There was a voice that told me to do it. Do it now. And I acted upon that voice because I didn't see any other way.
Using his bare hands, Shaw managed to disarm the half-naked gunman as he tried to reload.
So when I first run through the door, knocks him off balance, gets up. I then grab the gun with my right hand, the barrel, and I point the barrel down because I know if the barrel's pointed down to the ground, it can't hurt me. It can't really hurt anybody if it's pointed down to the ground. I take my left hand off of him, and I just pulling up, and I finally get the gun, and I throw it. And I watch the gun look like it was in the air for days, and I just watched it glide, and it finally went over the bar.
Shaw then continues to wrestle with Reinking, pushing him through the front doors of the Waffle House. Reinking at this point is now apparently fully nude after losing the only thing he was wearing, his jacket. He runs off, but not before Shaw says Reinking called him a racial slur.
And once you got outside the Waffle House, did you hear him say anything to you?
Yes.
And what did he say?
So some along the lines of just disarm me.
Shaw burned his hand when he grabbed the barrel of the gun. He also suffered a graze wound to his elbow, but was otherwise okay. Reinking's victims include 20-year-old Joe Perez, 29-year-old Taureen Sanderlin, both shot to death in the parking lot. 21-year-old D'Ebony Groves was killed inside the Waffle House, and 23-year-old Aquila De Silva died at the hospital. Reinking might have massacred everyone inside that restaurant had it not been for Shaw listening to that inner voice inside of him that told him to act. Reinking's murder trial began this week. He's pled not guilty by reason of insanity. His lawyers arguing in opening statements that a client has a history of severe schizophrenia and mental illness. They claim he thought people inside the Waffle House that early morning were government agents whom God had commanded him to kill. Joining me now is Kathy Russin, executive trial producer at the Law and Crime Network. She has been following this case closely. Kathy, great to see you. So what should the defense do with this powerful testimony?
It's going to be tough for them. They have put up witness after witness that described those harrowing events. You were in their shoes. You couldn't believe what you were watching. People testifying about playing dead, and we saw them playing dead. It was really, really emotional testimony. The defense needs to prove that he could not appreciate the wrongfulness of his actions on that day when he was doing that because of a mental health or defect. He does have schizophrenia. He has been hospitalized for that, even waiting for trial for a period of time. They're going to have to rely on their mental health experts that should be starting tomorrow.
And very quickly, has Shaw been appreciated for what he did that day?
Oh, very much so. As a matter of fact, Chadwick Boseman was given an MTV Hero Award for being a superhero, and he gave it to James Shaw.
That's great to hear. I mean, you know, I just can't believe what this guy did. Kathy Russin, sorry we had to go so short with you, but we've got a very important segment coming up that we just can't miss, and we appreciate you. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Ben.
Coming up, a suspected drunk driver is behind the wheel of an out-of-control car. See him slam right into a woman with a baby girl in her arms before crashing into a barbershop, trapped the terrified girl. These men right here are the hero officers who helped to lift that car off the 8-month-old, and they join us live up next. Tonight, instead of showing you the dangers police officers face in the line of duty, we want to show you an act of heroism, and the officers who saved a little girl will join us in a moment. Myrna Nunez was walking with her 8-month-old daughter Leslie in her arms in Yonkers, New York, when an out-of-control car turned a corner, hit a curb and a parked car, then slammed into the mother and child as they crossed the street. The driver then crashed through the front of a barber shop. 2 officers were getting breakfast at a bagel shop next door and rushed to help.
Lift it up! Lift it up! Look out! Can you pull? Somebody's got to pull the baby. Just got to pull him out. Grab the baby. Come on. I got it. I got the baby. Hold up. Okay. Yes.
Officers Rocco Fusco and Paul Semiyendi saw that the mother had been thrown from the hood of the car, but little Leslie was trapped under the vehicle. Officer Fusco, the girl's father, and some good Samaritans lifted the front of the car, while Officer Semiyendi pulled Leslie to safety. She suffered a fractured skull and 3rd-degree burns. Her mother had a serious leg fracture. They've made incredible progress, but are still recovering from their injuries. Meanwhile, the driver, David Ponkurak, had a suspended license. Police found alcohol in the car. Ponkurak pled guilty to aggravated vehicular assault. He's facing 5 to 15 years in prison when he's sentenced next month. Right now, I'm pleased to be joined by Officers Rocco Fusco and Paul Semiyendi. Thank you so much to both of you for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Wow, watching this, what a moment. Officer Fusco, take me through, please. What happened? You both just happened to be next door?
Yeah, we were just starting our day. We were in the bagel shop right next door, just getting breakfast when we heard a car accident outside. And then the building we were in started to shake a little bit. Obviously, we went outside. We didn't realize the extent of what happened. We found a car had driven through the storefront next door.
And Officer Semiyendi, as Officer Fusco and some good Samaritans lifted the car. What did you do?
I bent down and just kind of got the baby out from under the car and was just happy that she was crying and she was breathing and she seemed intact.
I want to watch that moment again as you got the baby out from under the car. Let's watch that one more time.
Look out. Can you pull? Somebody's got to pull the baby. Just got to pull him out. Grab the baby. Come on. I got it. I got the baby.
Now, Officer Fusco, you lifted the car there, but I love the fact that witnesses just jumped in to help. Did just everyone just decide at the same time, hey, we just got to do this? Did anyone have to call for people to come and help?
No, the credit really goes to the community. Me and Paul, through our training, are trained for moments like that. A lot of people in the community aren't, and nobody hesitated. In today's age, some people take their phones out and stand there and tape, and everybody reacted. Everybody did something to help. It's a real credit to them.
And Officer Samiedny, you're a dad. I've got to believe that being there and being a dad, it had a particular impact on you.
It was very emotional after the fact. I remember walking outside with the baby and the father standing there, and I didn't know it was the father at the time. And then when I asked him, the relief I had handing the baby over to him, it hit me for a while after the fact.
And you both have had a chance to meet with the family. Is that right? Since the rescue?
Yeah, we met with them right before Thanksgiving, which coincidentally was Leslie's first birthday. They're both doing great. Everything, all things considered. It was a miracle both of them survived. It really was.
And were you guys involved in arresting the guy in the car afterwards?
The gentleman stuck around, and then other officers came to the scene, and they were the ones that processed the arrest with him. I was covered in motor oil because the baby from underneath the car was covered in motor oil, so I was outside getting washed off.
Wow. Well, that's such a lovely picture. Look at that. Not that one. The picture before a moment ago of you guys with little Leslie on her first birthday. These are the kinds of moments that I wish the media would focus more on in general. This is a terrific moment. I think it's an important moment, and I think it's great that we're seeing a side of policing that I think a lot of people aren't talking about right now. And, I wish they were talking about it more. So we are. So Officer Fusco and Officer Samiedny, thank you so much for what you've done. I know I speak on behalf of all of our viewers when they say thank you for what you did out there.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And this reminds me of a point that I think is worth making about this show. Every single night on this show, I typically cover an incident which shows you the dangers that police officers face every day. Today, we showed an act of heroism. And the reason I do this, in large part, is because I don't think that there are enough people in the media who are focusing on this. If everyone was doing it, I'd say, you know what? Maybe we don't need to do it every night. But because no one else is doing it, I thought this is going to be one of the things that define this show. And I'm so proud of it. I hope you're enjoying it. That does it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. NewsNation Prime with Marnie Hughes starts right now. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.